The Tyme and Paulina Show.
Welcome to the Tyme and Paulina Show.
Good.
We hope you're doing well. Thank you very much for joining us. If it's your first time joining, or first time in a long time, this podcast is about us trying to figure out how we can consistently steward the health of our body, mind, and spirit. Because in doing so, we feel that it will position us to be the best version of ourselves.
Yes.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes.
The question for this episode is this: is it possible to find true peace? Peace.
Peace.
And obviously we're going to tie that into stewarding our mind, body, and spirit, because we believe they all have an effect on each other.
Yes.
But the elusive peace. Me start? You start?
You start.
Me start.
Yeah.
So for me, in hindsight, I think was always searching for a peace to come into my life to settle the storms or the questions that I had growing up, mainly because of my family situation. This episode's not about throwing knives or stabbing anyone in the back. It's just that was my reality. That was what I grew up needing to navigate. But like any young child that wasn't raised in a household like ours, I'm not comparing the two, but home being our family environment that the kids get to grow up in versus the one that I grew up in. I'm not trying to say that, I had a horrible, terrible life, but I had a lot of challenges that I didn't know where to find the answers for. And I would go seeking those answers or wondering if the difficult things that I had to figure out, maybe I was trying to find them in trying to achieve at school. Being 16, 17, I started to maybe see if my answers would be found in the bottom of every drink I would drink. I'm talking about, obviously, alcoholic beverage, not Coca-Cola cans. Well, also, I was trying to find that some answers there too. But nothing seemed to satisfy what I was trying to look for. A real peace. I didn't grow up in a Christian house. I did have, in my last year of high school, I had a tutor. His name's Dwain. Sorry, are we allowed to drop names? Yeah, Dwainos Thanos. He gave me a Bible, and I think I went to church with him a couple of times just because he was a cool guy, and so we all loved hanging out with him and being around him. And he gave me a Bible, and in it he had written, I think it was a verse from Deuteronomy 31:8. Possibly it was, God will never leave you nor forsake you, and that's his promise to us always. And I didn't know what that meant, but it sounded pretty cool. Made me feel sweet. So when I was 19, my friends and I we went to, I'm not sure where it was, but I think it was like Coromandel Gold. So I'm from New Zealand. If you're listening, from New Zealand, and Coromandel's, I think, in the North Island. Oh, geez, North Island.
It is in the North Island.
It's in North Island?
Correct.
Did I grow up in New Zealand? It's one of those festivals, you go there, get smashed, and go to dance and hook up, blah, 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 blah. Well, I mean, that's why I went.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone goes there for the music and the entertainment. But that night, for some reason, I didn't drink that night, and everyone else was wasted. I remember looking around thinking, I think I've had enough of just doing this. We've done this so many times every weekend. And that thought just came out of nowhere for me. It came out of absolutely nowhere because I was there to party and, have a good time.
Yeah.
As good a time as I could, feeling sick. Sorry, wifey. Sorry, wifey knows everything. And I kind of almost slapped myself thinking, like, where did that thought come from? And it was kind of raining at the time. And half an hour would go by, and then that thought came back again. So I thought, well, no one knows what's going on. They're all wasted, and and doing their thing. So I'm sober as a doorknob. A doorknob's sober? I'm not sure. And then I thought about it again. And when I thought, actually, you know what? I've had enough of just doing this. There has to be something just more to this. And when I came to that realization, as I said, it was kind of drizzling, raining. The rain just boom stops. For everyone listening, watching, you take it or leave it. This is just what happened, okay? I'm just recalling the facts of what happened that night. And no, I was not drugged, though I thought I was, as you'll find out why. And I thought, that's strange. Because we're on like a farm, it was like at a big paddock, as you do festivals in New Zealand, big farm paddock, and Fat Freddy's Drop are playing. And the wind kind of starts to pick up
Yeah.
a little.
That's too good.
And I'm thinking, what's going on right now? And then I noticed, like I could see out of the peripheries, is that a word? Out of my peripheral vision, I noticed that the clouds also are starting to separate. Like they were starting to part, not move, they're parting. And I thought, I'm drugged or I'm about to go get sucked up by a UFO. And then I was so scared to look up because I thought that was going to happen. And then when I looked up, I saw Mufasa saying, remember. No, that's not what happened. But I looked up and like a beautiful New Zealand evening night, I saw the stars and it felt like at the time something in my, well, I know it was like in my heart, in my spirit, felt like someone said, it's time to come home now. So I went from partying, thinking we're going to have a good night, New Year's Eve, to having this encounter happen. And I left. I left the festival and I went back to the van. And I was like, what in the world just happened? And then I said, all right, God, if that's you, if that is you, I will give you 2 hours of my week and I'll go to church.
Yeah.
And obviously I mentioned Dwain before because I knew he went to one, and I sent him a message and I said, hey man, are you still going to church? Can I maybe come along? I say all that to say, and we'll talk about it in another episode, but that was the beginning of my journey of building a relationship with God. And it was one thing for me to believe in God and say, I'm going to follow God and be a Christian. But it was another thing for my life to change. I needed to change some things. To be able to do that, I needed to be reading the Bible, His Word, and actually doing something about it.
Yeah.
And that's what I wasn't doing. But because I was in that environment, I did start to see the things that I was doing. They kind of were starting to highlight a bit more, like the vices that I had. Several of those things, were linked to me not looking after my body.
Yes.
Not sleeping well, going out still, eating late at night, eating bad food. Yeah, sure, went to the gym and all that, but everything else just wasn't helping my body out. But I finally found the peace I think I was looking for, which is what I probably should have said before.
Yeah.
So I found that peace. And then my next step was to now let that infiltrate the other areas of my life. But I was holding on to some of those things a bit tightly. So Philippians 4, verse 6 to 8 says, it encourages us not to worry about anything, but instead pray about everything, telling God what we need and thanking for Him for all that He has done. And then it promises that we will experience God's peace. And this kind of peace exceeds anything that we can understand.
Yeah.
And this is a peace that guards our hearts and minds as we live in the ways of Jesus. We've been able to be recipients of a peace that we've not been able to explain.
No, it's not like peace that you can strive for, or like.
Well, it comes from food or from,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think what I was trying to say before was that, I was putting my trust in all these other things to try and give me a quick moment of peace and comfort. But it's like building my house on sand, you know. Whenever trouble came, I just did more of that dumb stuff and panicked more. And
Yeah.
and where we wanted to go with this was that this is a peace that's available to anybody.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of my story. I'm just going to throw it
Yeah.
over to Paulina. Sorry, I just
Yeah.
waffled for 10 minutes.
In surrendering our lives to God, we have this peace. But in his word, it says he will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is fixed on him. And in order to be fixed on him, we need to be knowing him and knowing his character and knowing who he is, and that his ways are good and that he loves us and all those things. And that in those moments, like in my life, I think one of the most impactful things that my pastor at the time in New Zealand said about the Bible, he said, it's either all true or none of it's true. You either take him at his word and all of it, or you don't. When it comes to the peace equation, I think that real true peace, I really started to see in my life when I was reading the word and I was just seeing all these promises of God and his character and all of that. And then, there's also a scripture where it talks about that, like when we know the word, that in those moments when we have anxiety or we feel a bit panicked or we're tired, so we're maybe, like looking for comfort in our stressful lives from food and things like that, that he will bring to remembrance what he has said to us.
Yeah.
And that's I think in John 14, John chapter 14, it talks about that. And so for me, I really started to see things change in my life because of that, because just having him in my life and being in his presence and in prayer, that I was really able to experience that peace, but also to make better choices because of it, that amplified the peace. And when it comes to trust, I think that is one of the greatest peace bringers. When we can give our trust to someone knowing that they're a little bit trustworthy, are they trustworthy, but they're completely trustworthy.
Yeah.
It just brings so much peace. Well, at least that's been my experience. I grew up knowing God and believing in God, but I think my faith for me became very real at about the age of 15. I was kind of at the point I want either all of it or none of it, and I decided it's going to be all of it. So that's when I kind of went in pursuit of God and wanting to know more about him and learn about him. And I walked into a life church in Auckland, and I just remember walking in that first time. I'd been invited by a friend from school, and I just straight away was like, oh man, this is it. He's real, and this is where I want to be. And I was like, this is great. I just want to know more about this, and I think the peace thing in my life has been so important because there hasn't been that much peace in my life prior to this. Yeah. Yeah. Our family, there are a number of people in our family who struggle with anxiety and a number of different things. And lack of peace was what I was surrounded with. There was most times no peace, unrest, anxiety, different things. And so I think, when I really started to pursue God wholeheartedly for myself, I think that peace that came into my life was like nothing I had ever experienced. Yeah.
So, in summary, and relating it to, the goal and the mission of this podcast, which is to be as healthy in mind, body, and spirit, is that, the more episodes that we talk about the spirit, our relationship with God, you'll hopefully maybe catch that this is a foundation that is worthy to be called a rock.
Yeah.
And it is a rock because we choose to trust God, putting our trust in Him, and in exchange for that trust and giving over to Him, what Paulina's been sharing, what I've been looking for, he gives us a peace and a hope that we can't explain. And from that place, we feel like, man, now we don't want to do anything but honor the things that God's blessed us with.
Yeah.
And in some small way, not that we're trying to pay God back, but to honor the life that we have by stewarding everything. Because on top of all of that, apparently God's got a plan for us.
Yeah.
And we want to be
Yeah.
around for that and not mess it all up because, we got lazy and didn't look after our body and started looking at things that spoil our mind and our emotions. And
I think as our relationship with God is growing, we're realizing that it's actually way more exciting His way. And it's an awesome plan, or it seems to be, so we're totally happy to be doing this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never known more joy, peace, patience, all of those things.
Yeah.
So we're grateful. And because we're grateful, we want to share.
Yeah.
And that's why we're sharing it with you.
It's the best we have to offer. And the question we have for you to finish off is, where do you get your peace from?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you get your peace from?
Yeah.
And if you don't have any peace, we know a guy.
Yeah. So with that, we'll see you next time.
Ciao.
Ciao.